search for fire begins as portrayed in an unusual film about prehistoric life, Quest for Fire, one of 4 new movies we'll be reviewing this week on Sneak Previews. Across the aisle from me, Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And across the aisle from me is Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune. In addition to Quest for Fire, which is being compared to that famous opening sequence in 2001, we'll also be reviewing new wave rocker Deborah Harry in Union City and John Savage in the spy thriller The Amateur. But now Gene starts with Agatha Christie's Evil Under the Sun.
Evil Under the Sun is another in what is turning out to be a very popular series of mystery pictures, films based on books featuring Agatha Christie's stylish detective Hercule Poirot, who is forever pointing out that he's Belgian, not French. Peter Ustinov, the marvelous character actor, again is Poirot, and the latest film is called Evil Under the Sun, set in the stylish late 30s, featuring the usual group of stylish suspects checking into the same Adriatic resort hotel operated this time by Maggie Smith. Among the first guests to arrive, Diana Rigg, whose show business career, we are told, has eclipsed that of Smith. They're old theatrical rivals, hence the catty jealousy.
Welcome to the island, everybody. Kenneth, oh, it's marvelous to see you. Absolutely marvelous. It must be at least 2 years since you were last on the island.
It's 3, actually. Wonderful to be here. You never met Linda, did you?
No, I didn't. Hello, Linda. Welcome to the island.
And I don't think you know Arlena.
Oh, yes. Yes, I do. Arlena and I are old sparring partners. Hello, Daphne. Oh, it's been years.
Well, a little time, yes.
Years. Arlena and I were in the chorus of a show together. Not that I could ever compete. Even in those days, she could always throw her legs up in the air, higher than any of us. And wider.
Kenneth, this is such a surprise. When you told me of an island run by a quaint little landlady, I had no idea it was Daphne Castle.
Yes, quite. Daphne, I wonder if we could go to our rooms. It's been a long journey.
Oh, certainly. Do have a good, long, peaceful rest, Arlena.
The introduction of characters goes on for about the first 40 minutes, but that isn't the best part of Evil Under the Sun. No, the film really takes off in that traditional golden moment when Detective Poirot rounds up the guests in the hotel following the murder of one of the characters, and he says...
Mesdames, mademoiselle, messieurs, the reason I asked you to meet me here this morning, please, monsieur, is that I, Hercule Poirot, have discovered the identity of the murderer of Madame Marshall. This need surprise no one. Are you all comfortable? Even the murderer? This has been a most unusual crime, in that apparently nobody had the opportunity of committing it. Madame Marshall was killed between 11:30 and 12 noon yesterday, and yet every single one of you had a perfect alibi, including you, Monsieur Gardner, without knowing it. I'm very sorry if I have disappointed you. We had undeniably a body, which meant that somebody was lying. Who?
Well, I have a very simple way of judging whether films like this work. When that scene comes, am I interested enough in the movie to try to guess along? And I was with Evil Under the Sun, and on that simple basis, that's why I recommend it.
Well, this is interesting. You enjoyed the ending more than the beginning.
Yes.
I enjoyed the whole movie, and I think I enjoyed the beginning more than the ending because I thought it had a lot of style and humor to it, humor that I found lacking in the last couple of Agatha Christie films, including one we split on, The Mirror Cracked. You liked that more than I did. But at the end, you're right. We're guessing, and all the clues are in place. Now, I'm going to say something. I'm not going to give away the ending. You whispered to me in the screening room. You came over to where I was sitting. You said, "Do you know who did it?" And I said, "I gave you a name," and you said, "That's who I think did it too," and we were right. So that meant the movie played fair with us, right?
Absolutely, and yet the fact that I guessed it right didn't, sometimes if you guess it way early, I guessed it, I'd say, two-thirds.
Just at the right moment.
Yeah, two-thirds into the movie or something like that. A lot of fun. Not the greatest picture in the world, but fun.
And Ustinov is very good, I think, in that role. A lot of style, so forth. Our next film, Union City, is a very strange movie that tells a very strange story, and about the only thing in it that's not strange is Deborah Harry, the lead singer of the rock group Blondie. She's the nearest thing to normal in this movie as a bored New Jersey housewife whose life is made miserable by her husband, a Walter Mitty type enraged by a sneak thief who steals the milk bottles from in front of their apartment door every morning. This scene gives you an idea of the look of the movie, which is a highly stylized satire of what Hollywood used to call the film noir, those 1930s and 1940s movies specializing in gangsters and midnights and shadows and guys who talk like Humphrey Bogart and the dark side of human nature.
So, where did you get the money if it wasn't grocery money?
I have some money of my own. I wish you wouldn't do that. It makes me seasick.
Where are you going?
Milk.
So where did you get the money for the shoes?
If you could remember, Mother left us some money when Daddy died.
I put that money in the bank.
Not all of it.
What? What's the big idea? What are you doing?
Somebody was at the milk again last night.
What? All right. Okay, that's it. That is the 5th time in 2 weeks. Nobody puts their ugly lips around my bottle of milk and gets away with it.
That was Dennis Lipscomb as Deborah Harry's husband. He's an interesting casting choice for the movie. He tries to behave like Bogart, but he looks and sounds more like Bob Newhart. He'll do anything to trap the thief who's stealing his milk bottles. He ties strings around the bottles and the other end around his finger, waits up all night watching the finger, waiting for it to twitch. He wants to catch this guy and trap the guy. Finally, he does catch him, accidentally kills him, and that leads to a problem. How does he get out of his lease and switch apartments before the body is found?
Apple pie or bread pudding?
What?
Sorry, didn't mean to say the magic word, but I love bread pudding.
Look, we're moving. Going to Teaneck. Now, I've had it with this hellhole, and I want you to start packing in the morning.
Is this Myers doing? When are you going to ask me?
Myers has got nothing to do with it. I gotta buy a car now, too.
What about our precious 5-year lease you have all sewed up?
All right, so there's 2 left. Look, honey, admit it. I mean, this place isn't good enough for us anymore.
Jesus, Harlan. I tried to make it nice. The bedroom's practically brand new.
It's a year old.
So is everything I have to
Now,
wear.
please, don't start bawling.
I have friends here. I like the
Friends
grocer.
Like who? Like that dingbat Contessa woman?
Just because you haven't taken the time to get to know any of our
All
neighbors.
right, look, I'm calling the van. Now do the goddamn dishes and start packing. Now, there's no sense putting this off.
No, Harlan. You do the goddamn dishes and start packing. I'm going downstairs and talk to Larry. Find out about this lease.
Don't test me, Lillian. Do not test me! Damn it. I knew it, the lease. The goddamn stupid lease!
The whole movie goes on like that, an endless marital argument based on his guilty secrets and her adulterous desires. It's hard to say what Union City is intended to be. A comedy, yes, I guess so, but half of the movie, the second half, is slow and dreary without any new ideas. A satiric exercise on classic Hollywood styles, yes, but without enough energy in the story or characters to really generate any good satire. Maybe it's an anti-movie, a punk film telling us that since movies are all dumb anyway, it wants to be even dumber. I like some of Union City, especially the opening sequences. They were fun. They seemed fresh and original. But in the long haul, and this movie is a very long haul, after a while I just stopped caring.
I have the identical review. You know, sometimes these pictures, you get the feeling that they're a good idea, a cute idea. Half hour, maybe? That's about what this film is worth. A half hour is sort of cute, an exercise in style. All the things that you just said. All the decoration is right, you know, the look is right. They're after a look. They don't have much of a story to tell. You know who does this picture better? John Waters, Female Trouble, Polyester, the deadhead characters, the burnouts. This is a story about burnouts. Well, Waters in his films keeps all a lot more coming. This film we just get these couple of people.
You know, one thing I think is going to disappoint people, there are a lot of Deborah Harry fans
Yes.
who are going to walk out of this movie scratching their head because they went in to see Deborah Harry, and she is just, through the whole movie, just like she was in these scenes, rather dead, not especially filled with energy or with humor. It's a disappointing performance and totally unlike her presence on the stage, which it's supposed to be, but that doesn't make it entertaining.
Okay. Our next film, The Amateur, stars John Savage as a computer expert working for the CIA. He has nothing to do with the clerk and dagger stuff of the agency. He just does the agency's computer work. His girlfriend, a freelance photographer working in Europe, gets caught in the middle of a terrorist raid, and she is killed. Here's the moment where the woman is killed as Savage watches on a live television broadcast.
Yes, come to the information section.
You! Ascolto apparato! Fire! On your knees! Hands on your heads! Hands on your heads!
The murdered hostage was identified as Sarah Kaplan, 29 years old. She was originally from the small town of Saybrook, Connecticut, but she resided in Washington, D.C. At the time of her death, she was on assignment in Europe, working as a photojournalist for one of the national news magazines.
After that scene, which was edited, Savage expects the CIA to help him find the killers, and when they refuse, he uses information from the computer that he is privy to blackmail the agency.
If I have you right, you're asking for something, but you're not asking for it very gracefully.
I'm asking for something in a way you can't say no. I have photos of those, and the negatives are in a very safe place. I've taken certain precautions, and if anything happens to me, anything at all, copies of those messages will be immediately released to the press.
It's about the terrorist.
Right.
He wants them killed.
Wrong. I want to kill them myself.
Well, the agency eventually agrees to train him and send him to Czechoslovakia in an effort to get to the killers. But the film is so confusing and so torturously boring that I never really could get interested in whether he hit his targets or not. What's wrong? Just about everything. Savage has nervous mannerisms that are very annoying for a lead character. I think he's got a retainer in his mouth. It's some kind of gimmick, always spitting. And the labyrinthian plot is so convoluted that there are at least a dozen chances for Savage to get killed easily early in the film, and he doesn't. And the bottom line is that this film really builds up the CIA as all-powerful, totally sinister, but they simply can't bump off this one guy? I didn't believe it for a minute.
I didn't either. It seemed to me this movie was a clone of about every spy thriller I'd seen for the last 15 years. The guy who wants revenge, the CIA is going to set him up and double-cross him. The KGB is following him. The Czechoslovakian secret police are following them. The guy, he's got 6 security agencies on his tail, and yet he can walk through the streets of Prague with a drawn gun and nobody notices him. Furthermore, to get into Czechoslovakia, he's going through this mine tunnel, which they never think they leave it open between the two borders.
I know, that's the most
Yet
amazing.
they have 20 tourist flights a day into Prague. If the CIA can't forge a visa, they might as well shut up shop. I thought the entire movie was so improbable, I could never believe it, never get interested.
And you know what? It only comes up, all these questions, there are movies, great movies with loopholes in them. They only come up when the character is not interesting.
Now, that's right. You're
Michael
right
Caine and Richard Burton have played similar characters, and they were such interesting presence on the screen. I have to fault Savage. I mean, it's a gimmick performance.
He's given some very good performances. I do not think
As a support.
he's not right for this kind of a role at this time. Anyway.
Okay.
Right. Now we come to Quest for Fire. This is one of the bravest, most unusual, and altogether weirdest major films to come along in quite a while. The whole movie takes place during that period of history that made up the opening Dawn of Time sequence in Stanley Kubrick's 2001. Remember those great moments when the first 8 men learned to use a bone as a weapon and began man's long journey to the stars? Well, in Quest for Fire, man makes several equally earth-shaking discoveries. He learns how to make fire, how to make love, and how to make a savage, hairy mammoth go away. All those discoveries can come in mighty handy when you're a caveman. Early in the movie, a tribe has lost its most precious possession, which is fire, and 3 men have gone on a desperate search to try to steal fire from another tribe. But some saber-toothed tigers are not exactly one of mankind's greatest moments, but you can identify with it. What I love about that scene is how recognizably human those early creatures are. A tiger chases you, you climb a tree. The movie is told mostly in terms of action, what happens to those prehistoric people and how they learn from it. Look at this scene, for example, where one of those guys from the tree discovers a more advanced tribe that possesses a wonderful knowledge, how to make fire. Maybe just a little bit overdone and reverent.
Yeah,
for
silence
that.
would have been better.
Silence probably would have been better for that scene, but I love the expression on the actor's face, the wonder that he sees in this lesson that's being taught to him. And Quest for Fire is a good movie, an uncompromising movie, a full 2 hours of half-naked, mud-smeared, semi-savage cavemen walking around in animal skins and growling at one another. It's easy to make fun of the movie, and I smiled during the first 20 minutes, but you know what? I found myself growing really affectionate for these alley-oops. The movie story is very simple, how they lose the gift of fire, they go on a dangerous journey to bring it back, and how in the process, one of the men discovers almost by accident that he's in love. Not lust, which they discovered centuries earlier, but love. These are simple adventures, but not when you're having them for the very first time. There's a sort of nobility in the way these creatures learn to be human, but it's not a serious, profound nobility. It's really just the development of human nature. Maybe the most important discovery made in Quest for Fire is that when a rock lands on somebody's head, it can be funny if it's not your head. I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it too. I think that religious music is one of the flaws in the film. I think the filmmakers wanted to make a holy picture, and I think they've made something a little less than holy. This film, I'm a sucker for the whole genre. I like 1 Million Years BC with Raquel Welch. I like all the Planet of the Apes movies, or most of them at least. And I think it's something very elemental. We walk into a cave, the modern cave, the movie theater. We get the light from the projector instead of the campfire light.
The movie tells us a story.
And it tells us this prehistoric story, which we're all suckers for. And I think the film works at that level. There are too many first-time discoveries for me. I think
this is a real action-packed couple of weeks for the human race.
Yeah, everything, you know, from fire to the missionary position is discovered here. And we always happen to be just there. You know, some of the boredom of human life is left out.
You know, when you were talking about the fact the movie tells us a story, one of the great scenes in this film is when that man comes back and tries to describe to his friends what happened.
Yes.
And the language in the film was created by Anthony Burgess, the novelist. We can't understand the words, but we can understand the words. We can understand everything that's going on in the film.
As much as I like the picture, I wanted to knock one little thing.
Okay.
In some of the advertising, they are suggesting that this film is on the level of 2001. I think it's a wonderful film, but I don't think it's in that category.
It's also not a great scientific picture, I think. One of the things that an anthropologist friend told me is that for some strange reason you have 3 different tribes in this film who in reality apparently would have been living millions of years apart in history, and they're all just living within a few miles of each other, but that's okay.
It works on that primitive level.
Well, speaking of
that
savage...
was loud.
Speaking of savage beasts, here's Sparky the Wonder Dog leaping into the balcony to scare the wits out of us, and he's here to help us pick the Dog of the Week, the week's worst movie.
I'm going to have to moderate his sound. My dog this week is The Creeper, and Roger, I doubt that that was the film's original title. This one looks to be about a half a dozen years old, and the opening and closing credits were snipped off, a sure sign, and I believe the new title was inserted, The Creeper, to take advantage of the women in danger film trend. That's why I was really shocked to discover that The Creeper has nothing to do with women in danger. It's about men in danger. The film looks like a post-Vietnam War spin-off of Deliverance. 5 doctors, some of whom are dedicated to curing only their bank balances, set off on a wilderness trip and end up getting picked off one by some unseen evil force that turns out to be a World War II veteran who was butchered by an army doctor. This is a wildly overwritten and overacted film starring Hal Holbrook, who is crying and screaming throughout the picture, which probably then should have been called The Weeper. I will say this. This is the first film in which I've seen a man's head implanted on a stake and also heard the poetry of William Butler Yeats quoted, "A strange dog the creeper is."
Maybe somebody will write in and tell us what the original title was.
How about Hal Holbrook? Yeah.
Might be a good idea. Okay, Hal, we're waiting to hear from you. I also have a film this week that I am almost 100% certain has a new title. It's named Nightmare County, and it sounds like one of those mad slasher movies with a redneck sheriff rounding up hitchhikers for the local cannibals. I saw it with an audience at the same action-packed triple feature, Gene, where you saw The Creeper. But Nightmare County isn't really violent at all. It's a boring, inept, hard-to-follow movie about, of all things, a voter registration campaign among migrant workers. It's copyrighted in 1971, and I guess the movie was so bad it was just never released until they retitled it Nightmare County and shipped it out to unsuspecting action audiences. The movie does open up with two unmotivated, unexplained, and totally nonsensical killings. Look like they were tacked on before the credits to give the folks in the audience hope there's going to be more bloodshed later on, but there isn't. There are a few fist fights, then everybody votes, then somebody steals the votes. Maybe the creeper walked out with the votes. I don't know.
This is just by coincidence that we both happen to pick what we think are at least are retitled pictures. I hate when I see that. It's such a mean thing to do on an audience.
It's totally cynical. It's like the movie is just 2 hours of cinematic celluloid, and it's like sausage. You know, if it doesn't move as summer sausage, they retitle it Braunschweiger and open it on Friday.
It's just awful. So much for the dogs. Let's take another look at the main movies on this program. Roger and I agree on Evil Under the Sun, an Agatha Christie whodunit that had us guessing whodunit. We both recommend you see it. We also agree on Union City, a laborious exercise in style. This is a movie that would have been perfectly all right as a half-hour short. Unfortunately, it's at least 3 times too long. 2 no votes for The Amateur, the preposterous would-be thriller about John Savage fighting the CIA, the KGB, and this script. But 2 yes votes for Quest for Fire, the sometimes silly, sometimes thrilling travelogue through the world of 80,000 BC. Now, I have a question for you. We've agreed, not only just agreed on the movies, we agreed on every single weakness and strength of these pictures. Now, why are we suddenly doing this? We've worked together so long that we're identical?
I don't think so. I think we walked into the balcony, sat down, and happened to agree this week on these 4 films.
I find that movies, you know, a lot of people say they love when we disagree and all that. And so there might be a temptation on our part. But I find these movies just speak for themselves. So often, films are so obviously good, so obviously bad. It never surprises me that when we agree so much.
And these 4 films were not necessarily borderline films.
Not at all.
Okay, that's all for this week. Join us next time on Sneak Previews for more new movies, including Missing, starring Jack Lemmon and Sissy Spacek, Caught in a South American Police State, and The Seduction with Morgan Fairchild as a TV newscaster under fire. Until then, we'll see you at the movies.
Funding for Sneak Previews was provided by this station and by other public television stations.